This week we are going to dive into critical thinking. We're going to speak a little bit about learning styles and wrap that subject up next week. So, as we discuss critical thinking, it's important to reference our Cornerstones text, which is chapter 5, and really understand the different steps in developing your critical thinking skills. I do want to point out that critical thinking is a skill. It is something that you can learn and develop. It is not something that only people who have PhDs possess. Everyone in our class has critical thinking skills, and you all are capable of further developing them. To do so, though, we have to take a look at these 8 steps and really understand maybe where our strengths already lie and where we each as individuals need to do a little bit of work to develop our critical thinking skills. The first area that Cornerstones outlines is understanding our emotional intelligence, and we're going to dive in there here in just a moment. The next thing is to change perspective, or at least understand different people's perspectives, or the other side of a particular argument. This can be very challenging, especially if it goes against our values or our core beliefs. We need to be able to ask questions, be comfortable with doubt. Fourth, we need to identify, define, narrow, and solve problems. We need to make intelligent decisions and also differentiate between fact and opinion. Number 7 talks about seeking truth in arguments and in persuasion. And finally, number 8, thinking creatively and being very resourceful. So let's take a look and get started with emotional intelligence. Many of us have been told several times in our lives, well, maybe I'm making an assumption about you. Let me back up. I've been told in my life, think before you speak. This is sort of the catchphrase that defines emotional intelligence, the thinking before you act. Really understanding how our words and our actions will impact other people or situations before we take action or before we speak. It's essentially how we manage and understand our emotions. Think to a time that you've been very sad. Maybe you've had your heart broken, or unfortunately a death, or something that upset you. But then you start to laugh. Sometimes it seems strange, like I'm so sad, but I can't stop laughing. Sometimes we don't understand that. But sometimes we can find humor in even a sad situation. That's real. So how we manage our emotions and how we understand our emotions is a very important part of our intelligence and about who we are in developing our critical thinking skills. And understanding that sometimes we might have an opinion or something that we need to say, but maybe it's best not said or held for later. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that you don't speak your mind. This really goes to that, though, concept about someone having a filter. Have you ever heard someone say that about someone else? She doesn't really have a good filter. She just says whatever she wants and doesn't think about what she's saying. That's that emotional intelligence. Again, it doesn't mean not speaking your mind. It just means understanding how your words or actions will impact others. That's why it is so important in developing our critical thinking. So let's figure out how good you are at reading others' emotions. You can hit pause on this screen, and this is where I want you to take an emotional intelligence assessment. You can either copy and paste the link or do a Google search for the Greater Good Berkeley Emotional Intelligence Assessment. When you do this assessment, it will walk through and give you some ideas on really about how good you are in your emotional intelligence in reading other people. After you complete that, you're going to answer journal number 5. I want to know how well you read other people. What were your results on the assessment, and if you agree or disagree? Also, why you think this is important in understanding your own emotional intelligence. This journal is also listed under Journal to Submit in the Canvas course for this week.